In the crystalline halls of Calareth's science enclave, Giovanna moved like flowing water, graceful, focused, serene. Her fingers glided across translucent interfaces, adjusting satellite frequencies with a precision that came not just from training, but from a deep-seated desire to bring clarity to a galaxy often shrouded in noise. She was Ilari, tall, luminous-skinned, with sapphire eyes that mirrored her soul, curious, empathetic, and infinitely patient. To the Ilari, science was a language of peace, and Giovanna spoke it fluently. She wasn't a warrior. She didn't need to be. Her tools were not weapons, but innovations, transmitters, translators, harmonizers. Her latest project, an upgrade to Calareth's interspecies communication grid, was designed to ensure understanding across over 40 alien dialects. It was beautiful, ambitious, and necessary. She believed in connection, in unity, and Calareth, a quiet sanctuary on the edge of mapped space, seemed the perfect place to pursue that dream. The colony was untouched by war, governed not by force, but by shared vision. Yet, beneath that utopia, an unspoken truth lingered. Peace was fragile, and it only took one crack for everything to fall. Calareth was not a fortress. It was a garden. From the aerial platforms of the capital city to the coral spires beneath its seas, every structure sang of cooperation. Species from every corner of the galaxy had found their place here. The crystalline-voiced Davari, the luminous-winged Centauri, and yes, even the short-lived, fiercely independent humans. Among them was Marcus Wren, a relic from Earth's blood-soaked spacefaring past. Once a Terran fleet captain, now a quiet presence in the city's library. Marcus rarely spoke of the battles he had fought, but when he did, his voice carried the weight of dead stars. Children gathered to hear his stories of honor, sacrifice, and strange worlds. Adults, Ilari and otherwise, watched him with both admiration and caution. The old human had seen things they couldn't imagine, and though he never wore his medals, the colony remembered. Calareth thrived on shared purpose. In its markets, species bartered not just goods but ideas. In its gardens, bioengineers from 6 systems crossbred alien flora for beauty and function. Peace wasn't an accident here, it was cultivated. But even the strongest roots cannot stop a coming storm. Adjust channel 12. The Venari relays are drifting again, Kiro called, his voice half buried under static. He was hunched over a console beside Giovanna, sweat beading on his brow. Giovanna chuckled. Your accent still slips when you're annoyed, Kiro. The human linguist rolled his eyes, grinning. Force of habit, Earth standards stubborn. Their banter was easy, natural. In the sterile glow of the communication lab, surrounded by swirling holograms and blinking arrays, the two had formed a bond deeper than language. He taught her Terran metaphors. She taught him Ilari harmonics. They laughed, argued, solved impossible problems together. To the outside world, their work was maintenance, but they knew better. The satellites they tended were the lifelines of Calareth, bridges between species, between hearts. That day the skies were clear. Data flowed without interruption. The towers hummed with purpose. Yet, as Giovanna leaned back, gazing at the stars beyond the ceiling's transparent dome, she felt a flicker of unease, unspoken, shapeless. Kiro noticed, but said nothing. They both dismissed it. They shouldn't have. At 3:27 standard time, the stars blinked out, not literally, but that's how it felt. Calareth, quotes long-range arrays, went dark in perfect synchrony. Not a glitch, a silence, a calculated erasure. Giovanna stared at the flatline feed, her heart accelerating in quiet horror. We're not receiving anything from the outer markers, All channels, dead. Kiro's jaw tightened. Solar flares. No, this is artificial. Within minutes, the orbital sensors picked up movement. Fast, chaotic, cold dot ships, dozens, angular, bristling with weapons. Unlike anything logged in the Galactic Registry, their signal signatures were scrambled. They didn't respond to Hale's dot. When the first images came through, hulking vessels painted with bone symbols and scavenged parts, Javanna knew. Pirates. Not the kind in bedtime stories. These were warlords and mercenaries, exiles from empires that no longer claimed them. They had no flags, only hunger. Panic spread across Calareth like wildfire. Officials scrambled, citizens froze. This was not a world prepared for war. They're jamming our systems, Kiro whispered. They know what they're doing. And as the first explosions lit the skies above, Marcus Wren stepped out of retirement. The pirates fell like fire upon Calareth. Defense grids activated too late. Orbital satellites were either hacked or destroyed in the first wave. The elegant spires of the city cracked under orbital bombardment. The peaceful became refugees in minutes. Javanna ran. Not out of fear, but to reach the central comm tower. If any system still had a chance to broadcast, it would be their. Beside her, Kiro dragged a portable translator. We can't fight them, he gasped. We need help. No one's coming, she said, her voice steady, despite the chaos. But maybe someone's listening. The tower loomed, half on fire, but operational. Inside, Javanna connected her neural implant to the core interface. Her hands moved faster than thought, rerouting frequencies, bouncing signals off emergency beacons. She sent one message, just one, a cry into the void. Then she turned to Kiro. We hold here. We protect the data. The colony needs coordination. He nodded, and for the first time she saw fear in his eyes, tempered by resolve. Outside, explosions echoed. And Javanna realized something brutal and true. Peace had failed. Now, she would fight. Not with guns, not with violence, but with code, with signals, with the full power of an engineer who refused to watch her world die. It began without warning. No declaration, no signals, no time to prepare, just darkness, and then fire. Out of the void of space, pirate fleets tore through the silence, their ships massive and twisted, like beasts carved from old nightmares. Engines howled as they broke through Calareth's atmosphere, and within minutes, the skies turned red. Plasma rained down on the once serene colony, striking power plants, communication hubs, and orbital defense stations. The defense grid blinked offline, one section at a time. The colony's security systems, built for rogue asteroids and technical failures, were no match for the brutal precision of warlords. They moved like a pack of wolves, fast, coordinated, and merciless. Defenders barely had time to mount a resistance. The local militia, brave but untrained, stood their ground, but it was like trying to hold back a tidal wave with bare hands. Explosions lit up the horizon. Buildings crumbled, towers fell, and with each strike, hope dimmed. From above, it looked like a dying ember in a sea of black. Calareth, once a sanctuary of peace and science, was now drowning in fire. Sirens screamed as the world below turned to chaos. Families ran through the streets. Parents clutched children. Elders limped, guided by trembling hands. Every face was marked by one thing: fear. They fled toward underground shelters, hastily constructed tunnels deep beneath the colony's surface, designed for rare emergencies. They had never been used like this. Slammed shut behind those who made it. Others weren't so lucky. Above ground, pirate troops landed, hulking creatures in jagged armor, followed by drones scanning for survivors. The colony's harmony was shattered, replaced by screams, smoke, and the sound of boots stomping over rubble. Inside the bunkers, whispers spread. The Galactic Council had received the distress call, but they wouldn't act.
Not yet. Politics, red tape, risk assessments. Help could be weeks away, if it ever came. Giovanna stood among the huddled survivors, her mind racing. Engineers weren't trained for war, but she felt a responsibility burning in her chest. Her people looked to her, not for orders, but for hope. She didn't have it. Kiro, pale and dust-covered, appeared at her side. His voice was low, the main arrays down. If we're going to reach anyone, we'll have to try something else. The command center was in ruins, wires sparking, walls blackened, consoles silent, and yet, Giovanna and Kiro moved with grim focus. It was their only chance. Try routing power from the backup grid, she said, fingers flying across a half-functional terminal. I already did. It's fried. Kiro's face was tight with frustration. We're out of time. Another tremor rocked the bunker. Dust spilled from the ceiling. Somewhere above, the pirates were pushing deeper, closer. Kiro hesitated, then glanced over his shoulder. There's something else. Giovanna narrowed her eyes. What do you mean? It's old, from Earth. Something Marcus left behind before he went into seclusion. He swallowed. It's a beacon, a Terran-made emergency signal. Not officially authorized, not exactly safe. What kind of beacon? His answer was slow, weighted. The kind that calls death worlders. Silence fell between them. Giovanna had read about humanity's early military exploits. Planets turned to glass, enemies reduced to ash. Earth wasn't feared because of its weapons. It was feared because of its people, unbreakable, unrelenting, and utterly unforgiving. And now, she had to decide whether to call them. Beneath the rubble of Marcus Wren's old freighter, past dust-covered crates and forgotten tools, they found it, a black cylinder sealed in a pressure lock case, etched with old Terran code and a warning. Activate only in the event of planetary extinction. Kiro brushed off the dust. He never told anyone. Said if the world ever went dark, this would bring the light back. Giovanna stared at the device. It was small, barely the size of her forearm, and yet, it hummed with something ancient, something terrifying. This won't just bring help, she said. It'll bring war. Kiro nodded. Real war. The kind that writes history in ash. Giovanna touched the surface of the beacon. She saw images in her mind. Terran warships descending from the stars. Steel giants with no mercy. Soldiers who would fight until nothing remained. And yet, it was that or surrender. She looked at him. Will they come? He didn't blink. If they hear this, they'll come. The pirates were minutes away. The fallback shelters were compromised. Calorith was dying. Giovanna stood with the beacon in her hands, heart pounding. Around her, survivors stared in silence, knowing nothing of what she held, but sensing its power, its weight. She took a deep breath. This could bring destruction. It could bring salvation, Kiro said. Her eyes closed. In that moment, she remembered the laughter of children in the floating gardens, the quiet brilliance of Calorith's universities, the songs shared between alien cultures. She pressed the beacon's center. A soft chime echoed through the bunker. A pulse of energy surged into the stars, traveling faster than light, through subspace channels long forgotten. And somewhere in the black, humanity heard. Giovanna opened her eyes. We've sent the war cry. No one spoke. There was only silence. Because from this point on, there was no going back. The signal was sent, then nothing. Days turned into weeks. The sky above Calorith remained quiet, eerily so. The stars, once beautiful and full of wonder, now felt like distant spectators, watching silently as hope withered below. Giovanna stared at the horizon from the edge of a shattered tower, her eyes scanning for anything. Lights, movement, a sound. All she found was ash and smoke. The pirates had tightened their hold. Every day, more territory fell under their control. Streets once filled with laughter, now echoed with the stomp of boots and the screams of the taken. Rumors swirled like ghosts in the bunkers. Marcus is dead. The beacon failed. No one is coming. Fear bred suspicion, trust eroded. Even allies looked at each other with doubt in their eyes. Then the pirates escalated. Hostages, hundreds, pulled from homes, hiding places, even shelters meant for children, displayed in the open like trophies, reminders of who held power now. Javenna clenched her fists. She felt useless. The galaxy was silent, and Calareth, her home, was being bled dry. She wandered the ruins alone, her steps echoing off broken steel and scorched concrete. What once stood as a symbol of progress now lay in pieces, twisted into mockery. The marketplace was gone. The learning domes, vaporized. Homes were nothing but cracked foundations and shattered glass. Javenna recorded everything, not because she expected it to be seen, but because someone needed to remember, someone needed to bear witness. But there were still lives to protect. Down below, in a half-collapsed metro tunnel, the last remnants of Calareth's people, huddled together, hungry, broken, afraid. Javenna had become their unofficial guide. She knew the underground paths, the power nodes, how to tap into forgotten systems for heat and light. But she wasn't a leader. She was an engineer, and now she was all they had. She watched children sleep next to fusion cells. Elders whispered old songs to keep the silence at bay. The weight crushed her. Every decision, every failure. It was hers now. And hope. Hope was a story from before the sky fell. The sky screamed, a rip, like thunder cracking through the atmosphere. Clouds were pushed aside, as if by divine force. Dozens of ships emerged from the void, shaped like beasts of war. Black hulls, glowing engines, weapons bristling like teeth. Terran, the name whispered through the shelters before anyone could believe it. Javenna stumbled from the underground, her eyes wide with disbelief. They had come. Among them, one ship dwarfed the rest, the TNS Vindicator. It didn't just fly, it loomed, casting a shadow over half the colony. Its presence alone struck fear into the hearts of the pirates. For the first time in weeks, Javenna breathed. They weren't alone anymore. There were no transmissions, no negotiations, no grand announcements from orbit. The Terrans didn't ask, they acted. The first blast struck the pirate command tower, leveling it to dust before the enemy could react. Then came the drop pods, streaks of fire tearing through the sky. Terran soldiers, encased in black armor, landed with seismic force. The pirates panicked, scrambled. Too slow. Calareth's skies became a battlefield of fire and fury. Drones cut through enemy fighters. Railguns punched holes through ships like paper. Terran troops moved like a tide, swift, silent, deadly. Javenna watched, stunned. These weren't warriors. They were storms wearing skin. Javenna had imagined diplomats, maybe peacekeepers. But what stepped through the smoke were not those. These were veterans, scarred, unsmiling. Their armor bore marks of other battles, other worlds. Their eyes held no pity, only purpose. They didn't celebrate victories. They didn't gloat. They simply moved to the next objective. One soldier helped a crying child to safety. Another patched up an injured colonist. Without a word, they didn't explain why they were here. They didn't have to. They knew what it was like to live through hell. And now, they brought that fire with them. The strike team came without warning. A precise hit on the pirates' central compound. No losses, no hesitation. And from the rubber, walked Marcus Wren. Alive. The colony erupted in disbelief. Cheers echoed through bunkers. The name Marcus became a rallying cry. Javenna met him again in the clearing, her hands trembling. He looked older, tired, but his presence, it brought back something she hadn't felt in weeks. Strength. He didn't speak of revenge. He spoke of rebuilding, of finishing what they started. The Terran banner rose behind him, and for the first time since the invasion, Calareth felt like it belonged to its people again.
Fires still burned. The air stank of ozone and ash. Javanna stood where her home once was. She watched as Terran troops cleared the last pirate bunker with ruthless efficiency. Everything she knew was gone, but something else had taken its place. A truth. Humanity didn't fight for conquest. They didn't burn worlds for power. They burned only when they were pushed. Giovanna realized this wasn't about vengeance. It was about survival. For Calareth, for the people huddled underground, for Marcus, for her. As the sun broke through the smoke-choked sky, she whispered to herself, "We lived because they came." And deep down, she knew it was only the beginning. The mountain fortress loomed like a scar carved into the skin of the world, a jagged monolith of steel and stone, veiled beneath stolen cloaking tech and shielded by layers of alien plasma fields. They called it the Fortress of Despair, and rightly so. From its parapets flew no banner, only the echo of past cruelty and the stench of desperation. Inside its walls, hundreds of civilians, taken from colonies across 3 systems, were held like pawns, living shields against the storm that was coming. The pirates, cornered, had chosen cruelty as their last defense. Mines lined the mountain pass, automated cannons hummed in dormant malice, hacked drones circled like vultures, waiting. But humanity did not flinch. The Terran fleet, parked silently beyond the horizon, stared down the fortress like a judge awaiting a verdict, cold, calculating, unmoved. These were not heroes bathed in glory, but soldiers forged by purpose. And above it all, watching from the flagship TSV Dominion, stood Admiral Cade, stone-faced, arms crossed, the weight of 1,000 lives in his silence. This was not just a battle, it was a reckoning. The hollow channel buzzed to life. Dozens of alien faces filled the screen, senators, envoys, diplomats, each one layered in silks and bureaucracy. The Galactic Council, high above the mess, cloaked in comfort and caution. A Denari noble spoke first, her voice trembling with forced civility. "Admiral Cade, we strongly urge restraint. A direct assault may provoke catastrophic loss of life. There must be another way." Cade didn't blink. He waited. Another voice chimed in, then another, each more desperate to slow what was already in motion. "Terrans," a Talaxi representative said, "are infamous for overreaction. Perhaps a diplomatic envoy." "No." Cade's voice cut through them like a blade across silk. They froze. "You had your chance. They called us. We answered. Now stand aside." Gasps rippled through the council. "Admiral, we're not here for politics." Cade continued, eyes like ice. "We're here because people begged us to come, because we don't negotiate with those who hide behind children." The screen went dark. The message was clear. No more delays. The commandant fell silent. No applause, no cheers, just a nod from Cade to his officers. "Activate strike protocol. Prepare shock teams. Send in the drones." One of his aides, a young woman named Rivera, hesitated. "Sir, the council may retaliate politically. Sanctions." Cade turned, slowly. "If they want to write angry letters while children are used as shields, let them. We're not the same." There was steel in his voice, but something more. A tired rage, honed by 1,000 battles, and a lifetime of loss. Cade didn't enjoy war, but he knew when words were hollow. He tapped the holotable. "Time's up, let's bring them home." It began with shadows. Holographic decoys flickered across the fortress radar, mimicking troop movements and triggering automated fire. Pirates scrambled to respond, emptying towers to chase ghosts. Then came the drones, silent, spherical terrors, gliding through air vents and sewers. They released EMP bursts, knocking out surveillance and communication nodes. The real strike team,
Just 6 soldiers in stealth armor, slipped in like whispers. At their head was Captain Marcus, a legend among the ranks, his face worn with scars, his eyes sharp with purpose. He whispered into his comms, "Target confirmed. Room 17 holds the hostages." Moving, explosions bloomed in distant corners, distractions choreographed with brutal elegance, each one pulling the pirates away from the core. The Terran plan wasn't about brute force, it was about precision, timing, and terror. And it was working. In the skies above the fortress, a pirate gunship broke through the Terran screen, heading straight for the refugee convoy, fleeing the southern valley. The TS Helix, an aging destroyer with barely functioning shields, pivoted without hesitation. Its captain, knowing the odds, didn't ask for orders. He simply said, "We've got this," and charged. The gunship's plasma beam tore through the Helix's hull. Fire bloomed in the void, alarms screamed, but it held. Long enough. The pirate ship exploded seconds later, taken out by a Terran cruiser, but the Helix was gone, her crew gone. Below, Marcus and his team burst through the holding chamber, gunning down the last pirate guards. Children screamed, women wept. A medic moved in, checking pulses. Marcus stood in the smoke, panting. "Evac the civilians," he ordered. Now. He didn't speak of the Helix. He didn't need to. Every soldier there knew the cost. Elsewhere on the battlefield, deep in the comms relay center, Giovanna stood over a busted power grid. She wasn't a soldier. She wasn't trained for war. But when the command line went dark, cutting off Marcus's team from the main fleet, she didn't hesitate. Sparks showered her as she yanked out the safety lock and rerouted the fusion core manually. Pain shot through her arm, static danced over her skin, but the signal came back online. Comms restored, a technician shouted. Giovanna fell to one knee, coughing. Around her, the Terran ops team surged back into action. And in that moment, she understood something. Sometimes saving lives doesn't mean holding a gun. Sometimes it means being brave enough to act when no one else will. She wasn't just an observer anymore. She was part of this fight. It ended as it began, in silence. The fortress fell within the hour. The last pirate tried to detonate the core, but was shot mid-prayer. The Terrans flooded in, freeing the hostages and dismantling the defenses. The civilians were safe. The mountain, once a monument to cruelty, now stood quiet. On the cliffside, Marcus staggered from the command tower, blood soaked through his armor. His breaths came in shallow gasps. Cade reached him, kneeling. "Easy, Captain. Med team's on the way." Marcus smiled faintly. "Told you we answer when called." His hand dropped, his eyes closed. And Cade whispered, "And we always will." The galaxy watched that day, and it saw what humanity truly was. Not just warriors, but protectors. Not just survivors, but defenders of those who had no voice. The pirates were gone, the hostages were free. And the legend of the Terrans only grew stronger. The smoke had cleared, but the silence it left behind was heavier than the war itself. Ash fell like gray snow across the ruined plains of Calareth, burying the broken structures and shattered homes under a blanket of quiet sorrow. Once a vibrant colony city glowing with light and life, it now resembled the skeleton of a civilization brought to its knees. But humanity had come, not just to fight, but to rebuild. The Terran fleet didn't retreat after the victory. Dropships now carried relief supplies instead of soldiers. Heavy lift drones descended to clear rubble. Engineers in armored suits repaired generators, laid fiber cables, and restored water systems. Children watched wide-eyed as humans worked side by side with Calarethian survivors, teaching them how to weld, how to purify water, how to dig with efficiency. Earth had refined through centuries of struggle. Still, the scars were deep. Streets bore the imprint of orbital bombardments. Families grieved openly. Yet amid the ruins, a quiet miracle began. One by one, lights returned. In the face of ruin, life found a way. And with every nail driven and wall raised, the Terrans reminded this world of something vital. Whispers carried across the stars, echoing through spaceports, datanet forums, and even council halls. Call the Death Worlders. It used to be a joke, a terrifying myth told to scare stubborn diplomats. Now it was a command spoken with reverence and dread. The Calarethians knew firsthand what it meant. The humans hadn't just won a war. They had unleashed themselves against superior numbers, against cruelty, against overwhelming odds. They fought not with recklessness, but with a terrifying clarity of purpose. Protect the innocent, no matter the cost. Across the galaxy, eyes turned to Earth. The Talaxi, who once dismissed humans as volatile upstarts, now studied their tactics in military academies. The Denari no longer barred Terran ships from orbit, instead welcoming them with honor guards. But there was fear too. Humans were no longer seen as weaklings from a dangerous world. They were warriors who endured hell and brought it with them when provoked. Children on distant worlds began reenacting battles in the dirt, shouting, "We're Terrans, we don't run," as they charged imaginary foes. It wasn't just respect. It was a new kind of legend, a people from a death world who refused to die and dared the rest of the galaxy to challenge them. The plaza was quiet. Rows of mourners stood beneath the cracked skies of Calareth, heads bowed, breaths held. At the center, surrounded by flowers and fragments of the destroyed city, a stone pillar stood tall, etched with names, both human and alien. Giovanna stepped forward, her voice barely more than a whisper, amplified by speakers. "I didn't believe they would come." She paused, swallowing hard. "I begged for help. For weeks I begged, and no one answered, not until Earth." She looked to the front row where Terran officers stood in full armor, their helmets held at their sides, faces solemn. They didn't just send ships, they sent their dead, they sent their best, and they saved us. Her voice cracked as tears welled in her eyes. "You don't understand what it means to call the Death Worlders. You're not just summoning weapons. You're summoning the rage of a world that survived extinction more times than you can count. A world that lives by clawing its way through fire, famine, and war." She placed her hand on the stone. "And when Earth chooses to fight for you, it means they believe you're worth saving." Silence followed, then applause, tears too, and a newfound reverence. They carved him from obsidian, strong, black, and unyielding. He stood at the city's heart, staring out toward the horizon, where the Terran ships had first appeared. Captain Marcus, rifle in hand, his cloak flowing like a banner in a wind long gone. Beneath the statue, the inscription read, "He did not come for conquest. He came because no one else would." Children ran circles around the base, laughing, alive because of him. Parents left flowers. Calarethian veterans touched the stone and wept. To the galaxy, Marcus became more than a man. He was a story, told in different tongues, retold with reverence. To some, he was the symbol of Earth's fury, efficient, cold, unstoppable. To others, he was the hand that lifted them from the rubble. But to those who knew him, he was the truth of what it meant to be human, brave, despite fear, kind, despite pain, unbroken despite everything. His legacy wasn't just carved in stone, it was carved into the hearts of a world that would never forget him. And above it all, the Terran flag flew, not in conquest, but in remembrance. The soft hum of the space station's lights buzzed in the background as young Mira sat in the library, her legs tucked beneath her. Her fingers flipped through the pages of an ancient book, its worn leather cover and yellowed pages marking it as a relic from a past few remembered. The book's title, The Death Worlders Answered, was embossed in fading gold lettering. Her eyes traced the words, her mind racing with wonder at the stories she read, stories of humans, Death Worlders, who had come from the farthest reaches of space. When all seemed lost, they had fought, bled, and won a war no one else dared take on. Their weapons and will unstoppable. Mira, quote, as heart beat faster. The humans, those legendary Terrans, had once saved the very world she called home. Their reputation was known across the galaxy, the warriors who could stand alone against the most terrifying of odds. But now, the battle was long past, and humanity's presence seemed almost like a fading memory. A sense of awe filled her chest, as if she were reading about gods. She paused, and glanced up at the window, where distant stars glittered coldly. Would they still come, if we called them today? Her voice was barely a whisper, yet it seemed to carry the weight of a question that echoed throughout the universe. Her gaze turned back to the pages, but her mind lingered on the question. The Death Worlders had been their saviors. Could they still be the saviors of a world that had forgotten the fear they once inspired? In the nearby corner of the library, an elder stood, his figure a testament to time. His robes, lined with centuries of wear, whispered as he approached. His eyes, dark and reflective, held the weight of countless battles fought not just by his people, but by the Death Worlders themselves. Mira turned, startled. As the elder's voice rumbled low and steady, "They would come, but only if it's truly the last hope," he said, his words filled with a gravity that made her stomach tighten. "And if it is, may the stars have mercy on whoever forced that call." The elder paused, his weathered face lined with memories of wars long past. There are no more allies like the Terrans. They fought a war unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen. You think of them as a distant legend, but there's nothing mythical about their power. When they answer the call, it is a storm that consumes all in its path. Mira felt the cold knot of fear and awe tighten in her chest. The Terrans, the Death Worlders, were more than just warriors. They were survival incarnate, bound by a history of endless struggle. The elder's voice softened. "They will come, but only for those who are worthy of their wrath." Mira's fingers tightened on the book. She had always believed the Terran stories to be distant history, but now she understood that their legacy wasn't just a tale told for comfort. It was a warning, an imprint of something both terrifying and inspiring. In the endless void of space, the stars stretched far beyond the reach of any ship or station. Yet, in the deep silence of this vast emptiness, a single light blinked in the distance, steady, unmoving. The beacon on the distant asteroid flickered softly, casting a dim glow into the abyss. Its signal, humanity's last call, had long since been dormant, but it still waited. And TNS Vindicator, humanity's unsung sentinel, waited with it. The massive vessel, once the tip of the spear in galactic warfare, now sat silent. Its hull, once forged in the fires of battle, had long since been obscured by dust and cosmic debris. Still, the ship's systems hummed with life, its engines ready, its weapons primed. Beneath the cold void, it waited, a relic of humanity's might, but a relic that still stood guard, prepared to unleash hell at a moment's notice if called. The Vindicator was more than just a ship. It was a symbol of humanity's unyielding spirit. Even after the passage of centuries, the Terrans were still there, waiting, watching, a presence that could never be fully erased, no matter how much time passed. The silence was deafening, yet filled with potential. Would they come again? The Vindicator seemed to ask that question, its senses probing the dark, ever watchful, ever ready for the call. No one could say if that call would ever come, but if it did, the stars would tremble.